Hello and welcome to the Forge podcast. Today it's the sport edition and we're going to be talking about all things sport in the recent weeks. Unfortunately the host Luke Baldwin could not be with us today, so me, David Marriott, is going to be taking over from him. I'd like to introduce my guest with me today.
I'm Sam Constance.
Dan Allen. Allan Smith.
Thank you for joining me. And we're going to be starting today's discussion with the weekend's footballing action. So we're going to start right at the beginning from Saturday and Bournemouth, Manchester United. So United have not been in the best form of late. Mourinho is still under a lot of pressure. Sam, I'm going to start with you. What did you make of the game?
If you're a Man United fan, I would say that was an awful performance personally. Even though they won, it is not anywhere near the best performance I've seen from that Manchester United team. They all looked really lacklustre, and I think really Bournemouth deserved to get a point out of that. I think we got really lucky as a Man United fan myself.
Yeah, he's going to be impartial. That's fine, we'll allow it. Dan, would you agree with Sam?
I mean, Manchester United are scraping through every game at the minute, aren't they? Like Valencia was a 0-0 draw. Newcastle, again, they've just won 3-2 in the last few minutes. They just need to be getting solid wins, especially, I know Bournemouth have been doing well this year, but against teams like Bournemouth and Watford and that sort of team, I think a club like Manchester United should be winning those games outright.
Mm-hmm. Alan, are you part of the Mourinho in or out brigade?
I think it's quite funny if he leaves. It's a bit all over the place, bit of a catastrophe. The only player I see is being utilised well by Mourinho at the moment is Martial. Other than that, I think it's really not coming to plan for Man United.
Yeah, and of course, Sam, you said yourself as a United fan, would you like Mourinho to stay or go?
Personally, I think his time's up. I think he's had his run and that's it. I know a lot of football fans who aren't Man United fans are saying, we've got to keep the party going because I think he's just ruining the club, to be honest. We need someone else in. I think Zidane would be a good shout as a manager.
Ruining the club? In what way do you think he's ruining the club?
Well, he's just dividing all the players. He's just not giving them the attacking freedom that they need. I mean, Pogba, Sanchez is a bit of a liability anyways, but Pogba should be given a lot more creative freedom than what he gets under Mourinho and gets a lot of slack for putting in good performances.
Pogba's an interesting one, Dan, because obviously there was that social media bust-up with Mourinho a couple of weeks ago. Do you think Pogba has become bigger than the team of Man United?
I think he thinks he is, but I don't think he's playing that way. I think Martial, like Alan said, has been the star man for them. Pogba has put in some good performances and got his team some good results, but he's not doing that single-handedly, and he should be sort of humbling himself more than he is and helping the team out more. He's been asked to play in a defensive role, more so than he'd like to, but I just think that he needs to do his part for the team and maybe move away in the summer rather than sort of causing this doubt and anger amongst the United team.
Okay. Alan, do you think Pogba's bigger than the club?
Well, take for instance a couple of weeks ago where he tried that chip when they were in comfortable possession and gave away a goal. I think that he's kind of trying to rally up the rest of his teammates, and out off the pitch they think that they're bigger than the team, but when it comes to playing on the pitch, it just can't perform.
Okay, and you mentioned Zidane as a new manager. Dan, do you think Zidane is the man? It's good rhyming.
Yeah. I think he is, and when something rhymes, you know it's the one, really. Mourinho was a special one, but he's the one at the minute. Okay, I think Zidane is a great manager. Obviously, he won 3 Champions Leagues in a row in 3 years, or 2.5 years, I think, because he just took over and then won the Champions League halfway through. So obviously, a person like Zidane coming in is going to only do good things for a club like Manchester United.
And of course, Zidane segues us nicely into the crisis at Real Madrid at the moment.
Yeah.
They've just sacked their manager. There's rumours of Conte potentially taking over, but that seems to have fallen flat. There's rumours of Mourinho possibly going back to Madrid. What do you think's gone wrong at Madrid, Sam, and who should be the successor?
I think what the problem was that they didn't fill in a proper replacement for when Ronaldo left. Because Ronaldo, this big superstar, has left your club. You need to act fast and get someone else in. However, Madrid just didn't do that. They just thought that they'd be fine. They got the new manager in and he thought, we can work with what we've got, we'll be okay. And it just has all fallen through for them. They've just lost that big game-winning player and they've got nothing else to fill in the gap.
They replaced Ronaldo with Mariano, didn't they? Which is quite an amusing step down.
In their defence, you can't replace a player like Ronaldo.
But you can get someone better than Mariano, can't you?
I think players like Hazard, Neymar are the obvious two you'd look at. But other than that, or maybe Harry Kane as well. I'd say those are the three.
Different kind of player.
He's a different kind of player, but I think at the end of Ronaldo's career, which I think he's leading towards now, he became more of a striker in the middle rather than the left-hand side. I think they've got pace in the wings that they could supply Harry Kane the ball with. So I think that, one of those three would be, they wouldn't replace Ronaldo, but they do a good job at bringing more points to the club and helping them get back where they should be, and that's winning the Champions League and La Liga. Okay.
Alan, what are your thoughts on Madrid at the moment?
Well, I think they didn't think Ronaldo was a necessity last year, but you see after that 5-1 loss against Barcelona, that without replacing him, they're feeling very vulnerable, and they need someone with that marketability and that professionalism to carry them, because they don't have anyone like that other than maybe Modric right now.
That's a good point on the marketability though, because Real Madrid are one of those clubs where they like their players to have a big sort of social media presence, sell a lot of shirts, and Ronaldo brought that, but other players perhaps maybe like your Keylor Navas, who they've tried to get rid of several times, maybe don't do that. And they tried to step away from the Galactico approach under Zidane and actually make a more collective team unit. But now he's gone, and they've gone back to that Galactico signing with Courtois, who's not really settled in 100% as well as he should have done. Do you think bringing back Mourinho would perhaps counteract that, sort of a big-name manager?
No, I think that's kind of what the Madrid fans want. I think they want someone to remind them of that success, because at the moment they haven't really got those big game winners, those big kind of players in the team. I mean, maybe Sergio Ramos is kind of the big cornerstone of that team, I would say, and maybe Marcelo. But apart from that, they haven't really got any, it might be controversial to say, they haven't got really many kind of winners. They've got a lot of players that are good, but they're not quite ready for the next level, like Mariano and like Keylor Navas. They're good, but they've been picked up because they want to be Galacticos, and then they're just not proven game winners. But Mourinho is a proven tactician. He can win titles, he can win lots of games for you, and he's got a lot of history at Real Madrid, and I think that would be a good signing for them to have as their new manager.
Okay, and moving back to the Premier League, of course, we had Leicester City taking on Cardiff City, Leicester running out 1-0 winners. We obviously have the emotional aspect of this game with Leicester mourning the loss of Vichai, their chairman. I'm going to start with you, Alan. What are your thoughts on Leicester's performance and obviously the emotional impact of that game?
I think they carried themselves very well after the tragedy the week before. I think Demarai Gray, James Maddison were vital in that team. They put in a solid performance. It was against Cardiff, but after that tragedy, it would have been understandable if they didn't pull out a result, but they still got the 3 points. I think that's a courageous performance from them.
And Dan, of course, we had that helicopter crash, horrible scenes, the footage. Leicester fans lining up in their thousands and scarves. Is there anything you want to add to it?
Obviously, there's not much more to add, is there? It's a horrendous tragedy for the club, for the fans, for football. And I think Leicester did, like Alan said, they held themselves well. They did great to go out there again. I know they had one game cancelled against Southampton, but I think that's fair enough. I think they've gone out well. They've won a game away from home. It's obviously going to be really tough for them, and I think they've done a very good job.
Okay. Sam, anything more you want to add?
I thought it was a very solid performance from a Leicester side that obviously they were going through such a terrible time. I thought that I had a look on social media afterwards, and I saw a lot of people criticising the referee for that celebration that Demarai Gray did. The booking. But I think that's just part of the game. It was the referee staying professional as well. The team stayed professional. I don't think there's anything more to it. But I don't know what you guys thought.
I think the only exception to that was, it was in a Sheffield United match. I think it was Billy Sharp. I think his son had just died, or his newborn child had just died, and he took off his shirt and had a shirt underneath dedicating to him. I think in that occasion the ref didn't book him. Whether that's a more valid reason than Vichai is not really something that's up for debate, but I think you can't really blame the ref for it. But I know Piers Morgan did have a go on Twitter, didn't they, about it?
He likes to have a go at a lot of things, so...
Yeah, so...
in the ref's defence, he might not have seen what was on the shirt. I didn't see that, but...
I think he probably knew anyway,
he probably
wouldn't
could
he?
have guessed, but I think the ref might have been sort of caught up in the game, and he's got that many people watching him. He knows people around the world are watching him, and he wants to do his job properly, which is commendable, but at the same time, I think most of us think that he should have been a human in that situation rather than a referee and just let it happen.
Okay. We'll segue on to West Ham's match, a 4-2 win over Burnley. And I'm going to come to the West Ham fan in this room and ask you for your thoughts on the performance.
I think it's probably one of our best performances of the season. With people like Lanzini injured, Harrell, Yarmolenko out, and then we brought Grady Diangana in, the young 20-year-old. I think he's probably our man of the match along with Anderson. I think defensively need a bit of work, but going forward, I think that's our best performance of the season. We worked very well. Arnautovic back at the head of the team, he's lethal. And I think as we progress through the season, we're just going to continue getting points. We've got some very easy games going up until Christmas.
Okay, now Pellegrini had quite a rough start to the season. Are you happy with him in charge now?
I'm happy with him. Every manager needs time to settle, and we've spent over 100 million in the transfer window. The start wasn't great, but now we're working towards building the team, gathering more points, and just being a sustainable team and going up the table as far as we can.
Okay. And that result leaves West Ham in 13th place in the table. Where would your sort of aims be for the end of the season for West Ham?
Hopefully top 8, and I don't think it's that ambitious. I think when you have teams like Watford, Everton, Bournemouth, we should be challenging, if not better, in those types of teams.
Okay. Dan, what are your expectations for West Ham? Because I know myself, looking at them, they always make very astute signings. So players like Felipe Anderson in years gone by, they've signed Joe Hart and Everett and Zabaleta, and you think, they're astute signings, but they don't ever seem to quite come off. Maybe Felipe Anderson, a bit harsh to include him in there, but
I think he's coming into his own.
Yeah.
He scored 2 goals at the weekend. But I think that, like Alan said, players that are coming in with the money that West Ham have, I think they should be competing at the same level or higher than Bournemouth and Watford, and potentially Everton. Everton probably have a similar funding, but AFC Bournemouth obviously are doing wondrous things at the moment in 6th place above Manchester United. So you can't really argue with that, but I think West Ham should be a bit higher with the funds that they have coming in.
Okay, and in the evening game, obviously the biggest game of the day, Arsenal took on Liverpool and it finished in a 1-1 draw, which means Liverpool are still undefeated in the league this season, as are Man City and Chelsea. Sam, what did you think of the match?
I thought it was quite a good match, but there was something that kind of puzzled me, and it was that Mane offside goal, because it definitely was not offside. Looking at it again, there's no way. I can't believe that he got away with that being not a goal. That's one of the main things that puzzled me, and I think Liverpool should have won the match. They really did seem like the better team when I was watching all the highlights back and everything. I thought Arsenal did play very well, and I had to commend Guendouzi. Is that how you pronounce? Guendouzi. He was my man of the match, personally. I thought he was brilliant in the middle of the park. He just picked up everything and was absolutely incredible. But Liverpool just had that little bit more quality, I would say.
Torreira's been doing very well for Arsenal as well, hasn't he? He's been that sort of midfield general they've lacked in years gone by. Lacazette and Aubameyang seems to be a pretty good partnership up front as well. How far do you think Emery can take Arsenal this year?
I think he should be competing for top 4 at least. I'd like to see them, which hurts me as a bit of a Chelsea fan, I'd like to see them push for an FA Cup again.
Arsenal.
They got a few, with Arsene Wenger in the latter years of his career. But I think that Arsenal should be going for Champions League places, not the Champions League places, and challenging for an FA Cup or a League Cup as well. I think that would be good for them. They've obviously proved that they're capable of doing that. I think they're sort of 10 games unbeaten now, or 9 games, something like that. They're doing very well. So I think they just need to keep pushing on, and I think Emery's style of play is working for them. They were a bit poor at the weekend, but they managed to get a 1-1 against Liverpool. I was shocked that Lacazette got that last 10-minute goal, but I think that Arsenal are doing great at the minute.
Mm-hmm. And Alan, it's been rumoured that Arsene Wenger may be taking on the AC Milan job. What do you think of him going over to Italy?
I wasn't sure he'd make a return to football so soon, but he's that type of manager that can take a club like AC Milan back to their glory days, and I think it'd be a good recruitment for them.
Sam, what do you think it could do to Arsene Wenger's legacy? Because if he does really well at AC Milan, everyone will be saying, why couldn't he do that at Arsenal? And vice versa, if he doesn't do very well, people go, I told you he's finished.
I mean, he did start very well at Arsenal, didn't he? He did. He did have a very good start. He just kind of stagnated near the end with all the 4th place finishes. I think he could do a good job at AC Milan. I think he really could, because they've been a struggling team recently. They've put a lot of money into that club, and it just hasn't worked out. And they need someone to come and turn it around. It's almost like Real Madrid in a way. They've got kind of good players, but no quality manager to kind of direct them in the right way.
Imagine Wenger at Madrid. Would you like to see that?
I think that would be a car crash, to be honest.
No, because he's
think
renowned for his sort of style of play, isn't he?
I think that he would bring something to the club. I'm not sure that would be 3 Champions Leagues in a row, but I think that he could definitely bring a style of play that is secure and could challenge for the title. With Arsenal, he had no funds, he had nothing that he wanted. He did very well in years gone by to actually get money into the club rather than wasting it all on talent, like maybe Liverpool did when they got the Suarez money, buying players that
Stuart Downing.
Yeah, and just wasting their money over the years. I know that the signings have come off now. I think they got Firmino and Lallana, but they didn't happen for a couple of years. And when you're at a team like Real Madrid, I think that those players need to play in that first
Instant
year
impact.
or they're gone. I think Liverpool gave them a chance, like finishing lower in the table in those few years. But I think if Wenger has funds, like he will at AC Milan, maybe with Real Madrid as well, I think he can do very well. At AC Milan, he's got players like Higuain, who's a massive talent. He tried to get him at Arsenal for many years. So I think that AC Milan have what he wants, and I think that he's got a good basis to go and do something great there.
Okay, and Alan, what are your expectations for Liverpool for this season?
They should be challenging for the title, but at the moment I see it as a 2-horse race. It's Manchester City and Chelsea. Liverpool, they have been strong, but they just don't have that finishing element, that sort of pressure, that thing that makes you think that they're going to challenge for the title. But we could see something change towards the end of the season.
The thing is with Klopp, he's been taking Liverpool in the right direction for several years now, and unlike Pochettino, I think it's actually led to results because Klopp's got them to quite a few finals, albeit he hasn't won any of them. But with Pochettino and Spurs, it's kind of been like, oh, next year Spurs will be really good. Whereas with Liverpool, I feel like they have got a little bit better each year. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Liverpool finish second maybe this year behind City. So I would expect Liverpool to get top 2 and reach a Champions League semi-final and probably win an FA Cup, I would say.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going for that over the next couple of years. I think I can see them sort of drifting off and maybe finishing just about in the top 4, which sounds very harsh based on the way they're playing at the minute. But I just think that they haven't got the sort of depth and structure that Chelsea and Manchester City have. I feel like all the players in those two teams are winners, and a lot of the players in Liverpool haven't got that mentality yet. They've gone from clubs like Roma, Salah, Southampton, Van Dijk. Their big players aren't coming from big teams that are winning, like Kovacic and Morata, who have come from big teams. I think that those players have a winning mentality, and Liverpool's don't at the minute.
And of course, speaking of Liverpool, Mohamed Salah has recently had a statue built of him. Now, I'm going to bring it up for the camera because our TV isn't working, unfortunately. But if you've been living under a rock and you haven't seen the statue, it looks like that. Alan, as a man with Egyptian heritage, what do you think of the statue?
Great statue, to be honest. I think the fact that it's in Egypt, it's not too bad. When your best Egyptian players over the last 2 years are Mido and Ali Al-Habsi, I think someone like Mo Salah has to be commended, and I don't mind it too much. It's not a great statue. It's probably not as bad as Ronaldo's.
I think it's worse than Ronaldo's.
I think it's worse than Ronaldo's.
It makes him look like a little gremlin, doesn't it?
He looks like both Beavis and Butthead at the same time. I didn't think that was possible.
I'm not sure what's worse, the hair or the face.
Or the hands.
Why is it so tiny?
The hands
Do your best Salah impression.
It's spot on, it really is.
In the defence of the sculpture, I think he's gone for more of a caricature there rather than...
Do you think?
Ronaldo's one is going to be Ronaldo, and he's just done a horrific job, whereas I think I prefer this one to Ronaldo's one. Actually.
It's meant to be smaller, isn't it?
He's got such tiny legs, though.
Yeah.
Tiny legs.
It's more of a caricature, so I'll let him off, but not so much. It is a terrible thing, but I will let him off more so than...
It's gained awareness, which is what they wanted it to do, isn't it?
The actual Ronaldo statue has now been taken down. It's been melted. Yeah. I reckon the same's going to happen to that, to be honest. I can't see that.
You've got to feel bad, because I know the guy who made the Ronaldo statue said how it impacted his life a lot. But it sort of hurt his self-esteem, hurt his future work. So, good luck to the man or woman that made this statue. I'm sure their best intentions were at heart, but perhaps it's not. I couldn't do any better. I definitely couldn't do any better. Speaking of Salah, what do you think of his form this season? Because it's been sort of so-so. It's not been fantastic. It's definitely not been as red hot as it has been in the last year. So I'm just going to bring up his stats now for how he's been doing this season. And in all competitions this year, in 15 games, he's got 7 goals and 4 assists, which is nearly a goal every other game. So it's acceptable, but perhaps not as red hot as it was before, Sam.
Yeah, last year, he was just electric. He was obviously going to win all the awards, like Player of the Year for the Premier League. He absolutely stormed it, but I don't think you can put that pressure on him again for another season. He's had a little bit of a slow start, but I reckon he'll pick it up by the end. I reckon he could get quite a few more goals on him. I reckon he can get to a good amount.
The thing is, we expect it of Ronaldo and Messi every year, so why shouldn't we expect it of Salah?
Because we only expect it from Ronaldo and Messi after they've done it for 6 years straight. I think that Salah was obviously incredible last season, but I think he is struggling this season. I think that's because people are onto him now. Premier League teams are good at that. They're good at finding the strong point of that team and sort of getting on it and not letting them do anything. But of course, that lets Mane and Firmino do their thing. So Liverpool have a massive threat, but I think Salah's just being pinpointed and targeted a lot more than the other two are at the minute, which is impacting on his form.
Alan, do you think as well the fact that Salah didn't really get a rest over the summer, he was rushed back to the World Cup, do you think that might have impacted it?
Yeah, he was rushed back to the World Cup. He had a bit of an injury, and I think there was a bit of a divide between whether he was going to carry on his form or just not. And I think I was sort of in the middle camp. I thought he'd do all right, but I never expected him to reach the heights of last season. But I think he does have the talent potential, but just not for another exquisite season like he had last season.
Yeah, because of course it was quite important from both a marketing aspect and also Egypt's chances at the World Cup that he played. And then he did play, and I don't think he was really at full fitness because he didn't come into form until the Saudi Arabia game, and Saudi Arabia aren't essentially the best team in the world. Would you agree, Sam?
Yeah, he didn't really have a great World Cup, but you can't blame him because, he was rushed back from his injuries. But I feel like he should have had a better chance if it wasn't for that injury. There was a lot of things that were going on, and no player comes straight off the back of a season and goes straight into a World Cup fully fresh, I would say. I feel like there's still a little bit of, tiredness there. Is that fair to say, do you think?
Well, if you look at Spurs, a lot of their players were in the semi-finals and they've been doing okay this season. They're currently 4th in the league, which is about where you'd expect them to be. I think they've won about 10 games on the trot, something like that, something close to that.
But I think if you look at it the other way round, instead of after the World Cup, if you look at before the World Cup, I don't think a player like Salah has been used to playing Champions League up until the final and cups up until the final and challenging every single game to get a top 4. I don't think he's done that consistently for a whole season before. Maybe at Roma, but that's not as competitive nearly as it is at Liverpool. So I think that he's gone into that World Cup probably tired anyway, with a broken collarbone. And I just think that it didn't go well for him. He got a couple of goals, but I think, he does need to bounce back. Obviously, that was a big blow, what happened to him in the Champions League final. But yeah, I think he'll come back. He's getting a few goals now, and I think, he'll go back to great things.
Okay, so moving on to Sunday, Manchester City took on Southampton in the early kick-off and thrashed them by the small score of 6-1. City just seem to be blowing everyone away, don't they, Sam?
Yeah, they just know how to get past teams. Even in the interview afterwards, you'd think Pep would be happy with a 6-1 victory. And he was still saying, our defending was shocking, we need to improve in our defending. You scored 6 goals. Lighten up. But yeah, obviously, as a Man United fan, it hurts me, but Manchester City are probably going to win the league this year, and I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah. Dan, do you think City are favourites for the title?
I think they're definitely favourites. I do think Chelsea could get there. I think Chelsea, I'm just looking at the table here, they've got goals for 27 and Manchester City only have 5 more than that, and that's after the 6-1. So Chelsea were right with them up until that. So I think Chelsea are definitely a threat. They're scoring loads of goals at the minute. And I think that Chelsea's defensive midfield is definitely a lot stronger than Manchester City's in Jorginho and Kovacic, who can play in centre defensive mid, and they're playing Kante as well in there. So I think that those three together offer more of a hold in the centre. I think that Manchester City's prowess in the centre is ridiculous with Silva and Kevin De Bruyne, but I just think in the smaller games maybe Chelsea's strength there might just hold them a little bit more. I can see Man City slipping up occasionally maybe. So if they keep going the way they're going, it's going to be tough, but I see one of them slipping up, and I think Chelsea are less likely to do that.
Okay, well, you say the smaller games. Arguably, Southampton is a smaller game, and they won 6-1.
That's
So-
at home against a weak Southampton team. I think.
That's a smaller game.
I think. No, so I mean, sort of games that they might not be expecting to lose. I think this one that's an obvious win. I think it sounds ridiculous. That is an obvious win.
So they're not expected to lose,
So
but
if
it's an obvious
Southampton
win.
are going for, if they're maybe in third from bottom and they're trying to avoid relegation, and you're away from home, then that's a game that you might go into a little bit complacent, and then Southampton will hit you. I think that could happen to Man City more because they're a bit more open. I think. You can disagree with me.
I think that they're getting a 6-1 with De Bruyne not even in the side. I think that they're just only going to get stronger.
Yeah.
They're only going to get
I
stronger.
mean,
Yeah. Because if Aguero's not scoring, it's Silva. If it's not Silva, it's Sterling. If it's not Sterling, it's Sane. If it's not Sane, it's Jesus or an own goal. So it's looking.
I mean, they're a massive threat, aren't they? I mean, you can't argue with that. But I just think that it would be tough for both of them to keep going the way they are, which is ultimately my
I was
point.
quite surprised to see Aguero play full 90 minutes. He hasn't done that since I think the second week of the season, and I'd expect Manchester City to prioritise Champions League this year, but they've got a midweek fixture, and I don't expect him to play. So I think they're really going at full force of the Premier League this season.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, there was the documentary on Manchester City this year, and it was clear from that documentary that Pep is not a control freak, a fanatic of winning. And like Alan said, they're going for the Premier League, but they don't necessarily need to, because I think their focus should be on the Champions League this year. If you retain the league title, that's a bonus, but City have never won the Champions League or even the European Cup. So
I think if you're Pep Guardiola, your target is everything. I
Yeah.
don't think your target is
Yeah.
the Premier League or the Champions League. It's definitely both. And if you're not getting both, you're not succeeding. If you're Pep Guardiola or his players, I think they've all got the same mentality as him now. So yeah.
Okay, so
I
we'll move
definitely
on.
agree with that.
We'll move on to the Chelsea game, the Sunday evening kick-off. Chelsea took on Crystal Palace and came away with a 3-1 victory. Morata grabbing 2 goals. So that's now 4 goals in 4 games for him, I believe. He's beginning to find his form, isn't he, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, when he first came to the club, he couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo. He was absolutely terrible. But now I feel like he's starting to come into the side a bit more. He's starting to, want chances. I think it was kind of like when Sterling joined Man City. He was a little bit scared of chances. But now Morata, he knows how to take them. And some of the chances that he took, they were just incredible. He knew where the ball was going to go before he even hit the ball. It's like being a chess player, but being 3 steps ahead with Morata.
Okay, I think it's possibly a little bit unfair to say that Morata couldn't hit a barn door when he started, because he started really well last year, and then petered off, and now he's coming back into form. Alan, what do you think? What do you make of Morata?
I do wonder if when Hazard returns, he's going to continue the form, because you'd expect him to excel with that sort of service from Hazard, but it seems like when you've got Hazard as the main man, he sort of shifts to the side a bit and he becomes a bit complacent. He becomes more unsure of himself, so I'm not sure how that'll work out when Hazard returns in full fitness.
Well, Hazard assisted the second goal to Morata, so perhaps they can work together. I don't know. Dan, as a semi-Chelsea fan, what are you making of Chelsea at the moment? Sarri made, I think it's the best start to any Chelsea manager now. He's won all his games. He's not lost yet. He's drawn a few, but what do you make of them?
They're incredibly strong. Like I said, their midfield is probably their strongest segment of their team. I think that their defence is strong at the moment, obviously, because they haven't lost yet. But I think David Luiz can be a liability. But I think when you've got Kante in front of you, that liability sort of gets erased. I think Kante's had a more of a free role and let Jorginho ping the balls round. Kante's sort of become more of a centre attacking midfielder, passing balls out to Hazard and going on mad runs. I think he'll definitely get better at that. But I think when it comes to the bigger games, I think he's more than happy to come in and sit and protect players like David Luiz. So I think they've got an amazing squad at their disposal, and I can, like I said earlier, I can see them going a long way.
Okay. Sam, Sarri described Morata as fragile, but he's currently got 14 goals in 40 league appearances for Chelsea. If he doubles that tally, he'll have more than Torres did in 120 games, I think it is. So does that put it into perspective that Morata perhaps hasn't been as bad as people are saying?
I think Morata might not be as bad as people are saying, but Torres at Chelsea was a pretty torrid time. I think as a Chelsea fan yourself, Torres was not a fun time having him as your main striker.
You always wanted him to do something, and he never quite did.
Occasionally he would.
Occasionally he did an incredible
I
thing
still
for
remember that
Barcelona.
Manchester United miss.
Manchester United miss, obviously, but yeah, I think with Morata, I get happy when he scores because it's like Morata, yes, because he's not done so well, and I'd like him to do better because that number 9 role at Chelsea, apart from Drogba, has not been great for people.
Diego Costa.
Diego Costa, I think he's done well, but Drogba's obviously like the main man over the Chelsea's short-lived history. But I'd love Morata to do better things at Chelsea and keep going and have a better career than Torres did there because it wasn't fair on him really.
Well, the things with Torres, we're only talking about league goals, but 27 and 120 is really abysmal. I'd forgotten that it was that bad.
He won a Champions League though, didn't he? So
He did win a
You
Champions
can't
League.
complain.
He's happy with his move because he's got that on his sheet.
But his goal against Barcelona, people forget, didn't mean anything. Chelsea were going through anyway.
it was security, wasn't it? I'd like to think that it meant something. It was a big moment in Chelsea's history. That was a
It was security, but they were going through anyway.
It's
So-
a big moment in Chelsea.
Ramiro-
It was incredible. I was actually a Chelsea fan back then.
What stopped?
I'm a stereotypical Chelsea fan. Just a bit fake, but yeah. I hate to offend other Chelsea fans like yourself, Dave. But
I remember you once said, I'm going to support Spurs this week or something like that. You wore a Liverpool kit.
yeah.
You just change teams on a weekly basis. And then you go, I'd like to see Arsenal win a trophy. Normal Chelsea fans wouldn't say that.
Well, I did say it would hurt me to say that, but I would like to see them win a trophy.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to the Premier League into England news, and that is the news that Wayne Rooney will be returning to the England setup for a testimonial charity match against the USA in about 10 days' time. Alan, what do you make of it?
Well, I think if you're going to have likes of Wayne Rooney, you might as well have people like Glenn Murray in there. It's
Are you sure?
I mean, he's been on good
What a
form.
statement.
He's been on great form. But yeah, it's a friendly. Obviously, there's no massive international tournaments next year, but I think it's a good send-off. But I think there are other players, Callum Wilson, I'm not sure if he's in the squad, but other players that could have taken the opportunity in a friendly. But I think it'll be a nice send-off, especially against United States of America. Hopefully he bags a goal.
Yeah, well, the thing is, obviously, Glenn Murray, people say he should come up to the England squad. He's too old. That's why we're not calling him up. With calling up Rooney, England have done so well in the last few months under Southgate to erase everything Rooney's era stood for, which was just failure. Failure, failure, failure in every tournament he went to. And they actually did something well, and the country got behind them. And then to go back on that and to bring him back into the side, it just undoes what we've done.
But in England's recent history, Wayne Rooney, I'd say, has undoubtedly been their best player.
Mm-hmm.
He's their
Okay,
top scorer.
yeah.
I think he's got 119 caps and 53 goals.
That is good, but
Get him
half
up-
of them are
get
in
him up to
friendlies.
120, hopefully 2 goals. He'll get 55 goals, 120. It just looked good for Wayne Rooney. I think it's great that they're letting him do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think he deserves this.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's a friendly. It doesn't even matter.
Okay, I'm not undermining the charity aspect of it. I'm not undermining that.
And he's been on great form.
But you say that, but then
America.
what happens when they pick him for the next friendly, and then the next one? Then
No,
He's-
this is it. This is the last friendly. They're having it as basically a
If he scores
testimonial.
a hat-trick, what's wrong with it?
And you can't really put it on his form. I think they're just doing it because he's had a good time.
Yeah.
But the MLS is a farmers' league. I'm going to put it out there. I'm sorry. It's nowhere near the standard of the Premier League. He'll only play for about maybe at maximum a half. He'll play for the second half.
Yeah.
Minimum he'll come on for the last 10 minutes.
I think
And
he'll play
that's it.
60 minutes. I think he'll start, and I think he'll play the majority of the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's better than the MLS. I think he can still do a good shift, maybe in Serie A, somewhere like that. I think he's a lot better than the MLS.
I think potentially. I might agree with that. He's obviously doing amazing things in the MLS, and they're making him look very good. And he's Wayne Rooney. He is very good. But
He almost
I
single-handedly took that. Was
Yeah.
it DC United from the bottom of the table to the playoffs?
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of agree
So
with
he's
you on
still
that.
got it in him. He can do a job.
Yeah. So looking at his stats for this season for DC United, in 20 league games he's got 12 goals, and 6 assists. So he's contributed 18 goals in 20 appearances. So he's done quite well. Nice little thumbs up to the camera. And in the Premier League he got 31 and 10. I'm so conflicted because I just don't feel that we should be giving out caps willy-nilly. And there's also the aspect that Southgate only has a limited amount of time with the players that are actually going to play and to formulate a new tactic, because he's moving away from the 3 at the back now. He's playing 4-3-3. And he needs time to gel that and get that in the players' heads. And we're wasting time by...
He's got 2 years.
It's one game.
It's one game. It's for charity, his charity. It's good for him, the charity. I think English football, I think it'll be a big thing for bringing Rooney back is just a big selling point, isn't it? I think
Some of the young players who might not have played with legends like that, to
really.
play on the same pitch as Wayne Rooney must be an absolute brilliant experience.
I agree with that, but when you have Vardy retired from international football, who is essentially your second striker, I think you need to work someone else into the mould quite quickly. And it is only one game, but I don't think Southgate's the type of person that would want to take a lot of time to have his mould set, to gather that new team, that new formation that he's working with for the next international tournament.
Well, the thing is, Southgate's the man that effectively ended Rooney's international career, because he dropped him from the squad and then Rooney retired after that. So I doubt there's any beef between them, but I just think it's an interesting little tidbit.
Maybe it's an apology. You never know. Sorry, Rooney, here's your own game against the USA.
I'm sorry, Wayne, that I dropped you. Can you imagine? Imagine this scenario. A, if Rooney still played for England in the World Cup, and B, if Allardyce was in charge. So we'll say both happened. We'll say Allardyce was still England manager and Rooney played in the World Cup. How do you think we would have done?
Obviously not as well, because what we did was incredible. However, I think Allardyce, he's that sort of 1-1 against Slovenia type of guy, isn't he? It's just that gut-wrenching pain of watching an England game. I think he's that sort of manager. But I remember writing an article about Southgate not being the one for England at all when he first got there. I was like, get someone in who has footballing experience more than Southgate. I wanted someone like Wenger. I didn't care if he was English. I just wanted to win. And I think, I just didn't want Southgate whatsoever. I thought he was
Proved
terrible.
wrong.
I had arguments with my brother about it. I just really didn't like the idea of Southgate. I think that he's done a great job. But with Allardyce, it wouldn't have been the same.
Did you see that tweet where it was England 1, Panama 0, Rooney 78 pen? England come away after that shock horror 0-0 draw with Tunisia to scrape a point against Panama. Do you think it would have been that bad, Sam?
I mean, Allardyce football is just long ball, hoof it up the pitch. Imagine if he was... was he manager when Arnautovic was at West Ham?
No.
Oh, I thought he was. Sorry, because who was it that was manager? I can't remember who the manager was, but it was just long balls up to...
Bilic.
Was it Bilic? Oh. I thought it was just long balls up to Arnautovic. I thought that was been that kind of play, and I imagine the same kind of play would have been for Rooney.
Long
it
ball
would have
to Peter Crouch.
Well,
Yeah.
essentially would have brought
Crouch
Crouch and Andy Carroll back to the squad.
Yeah, and
What
then
team?
obviously we would have played Belgium and lost and gone out of the group stages possibly.
Yeah.
Or maybe just played Colombia and gone out on penalties. Because the thing with England's World Cup is it could have really gone a lot of different ways,
yes.
because we
scraped
just scraped
through,
past
yeah.
Tunisia.
Scraped through.
Alright, we smashed Panama, but we should have done. Belgium, if we'd beaten them, we would have gone out in the quarters or the round of 16. We might have lost to Japan or Brazil. Only just got past Colombia. But that penalty, so it could have gone a lot of different
But
ways.
how good was it?
Could have gone to the
Incredible.
final as well.
Yeah.
What
I
a
think
ride.
The final would have been
So
too
close.
much.
I think
Been
England would have
too much
lost.
to my heart, yeah.
Because
It's
France
gonna be too
battered
much.
Croatia, didn't they? They battered
Yeah.
them. So I think they would have battered England as well, and that would have been demoralising. But equally, there's also that what could have been.
Yeah.
Because I think Croatia were there for the taking that day. If Kane hadn't have
Yeah,
squared it,
definitely.
if Kane had squared it to
Yeah.
Sterling, who
We
knows?
still believe.
Yeah, we still believe indeed.
Southgate spark is still in.
Exactly. And on that happy note, we're going to conclude the football section right there. Right, so now we're going to be talking about the cricket. Now, whilst we may not be as big a fans of cricket as we are football, we are still going to have a go at it because we've got all the information and facts in front of us. And we do watch cricket from time to time, so we do know a fair amount. So, Sri Lanka are currently taking on England. Dan, do you want to provide us an update on what's going on?
So as we are at the minute, as we're recording, England have just done the first test in day one. They have 321 to 8. So 8 wickets have been taken. They've got 321 runs. Ben Foakes has been the star man, which was fairly unexpected. He's in the middle order, so he's one of the sort of better batsmen. Their starting order is not great, so he's one of their better batsmen, but he's still not out. He bats again soon, and you've got to hope that the tail order will be good for England, because they need to stay in to help folks get to his century. So he's got 87 runs at the minute, so he only needs 13 more, and Leach and Anderson are going to be the ones to help him get to that, and that would be great for England. So they didn't start well today, as we're recording. They started poorly, and it was good to see Jennings get some runs in. He did very well, which wasn't really expected after the summer he had. He didn't have a very good summer against India and other teams. So yeah, there's still question marks about the team. The top order need to be sorted out. The middle order have done well, and then the tail. We'll see what they do. But
Okay.
they're not they're the bowlers, so they're not the star batsman of the team.
I believe Sam has some stats for us.
Yeah, I'm your stat guy. I came prepared.
Statman Sam.
England have not won a test match in Sri Lanka since 2001.
That's 17 years.
That's quite a long time.
It's a long time.
I mean, when was the last time they played Sri Lanka? If it was 2001, then that would just be a pretty rubbish
no, Sri
statistic.
Lanka have
But
it.
yeah, I was going to say. They haven't won away from home since 2016. Was
Ooh.
it India that they
I think so, yeah.
Was it India? I
Yeah.
can't remember exactly. And
Might
this
have been
is
the
the
West
first.
Indies.
Oh,
One of the two. Doesn't matter.
exactly. Yeah, it's cricket. No, I'm joking. I can't say that.
He's joking.
Yeah, sorry, cricket fans. And this is the first time that England have played without Alistair Cook since his retirement since 2006. I believe he sent some kind of video to the English team as well to kind of
On the big screen.
yeah, sent a big video to the England team to kind of spur them on for their game in Sri Lanka. So hopefully, it will all come good by the time this is out. You never know.
We don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. That's the
But
beauty of this sport.
We've started okay.
We've said we should record every eventuality.
Yeah.
So I can't believe England let slip a 300-run lead. I can't believe Sri Lanka didn't bat a single run. Just go through them all.
That would be ideal, really.
Yeah.
The latter especially.
Yeah, just
But, yeah.
bowl out.
I think we've got good cricket players, so I think we can do a good job.
Do you think that's ever happened in cricket where there's a team scored nil runs?
Well, back in the day of Dan Allen, we didn't have a very good cricket team at my school. I think
Here we go.
I got
Proper sports
I got
news here.
5 runs ever.
Not in one match,
Not in one
ever.
I actually played about 3 matches and I got 5 in 1. So
So you got a duck in the other two.
yeah, which wasn't great. I mean, I was okay in that first game, but then I just sort of went downhill. I thought.
How many
I was
balls
the
did you
beatings.
face?
Well,
One in
5
each.
runs and then 2 ducks, so probably 7. Yeah, that's my high school cricket career summed up for you there.
Alan, you ever had a cricket or sporting career?
Got hit in the face with a cricket ball.
That's.
I shouldn't laugh.
Have you ever played stool ball? That's similar to cricket.
No.
It's like we have a bat and you have a little stool behind you. It's going to ignore Sam laughing at Alan's misfortune.
However, India.
It was just so calm. Got hit in the face with a cricket ball.
Did it hurt?
Well, probably.
Fairly.
Yeah.
But I was just saying, I was lucky enough to go to India in 2011, and I played. Obviously, they love cricket in most parts of India, and we played a game called 7 Stones because I went to quite a poor park because my mum's friend lives there, And we played a game called Seven Stones where they build up the stones, pretty self-explanatory. There are 7 of them. And you'd bowl into those stones. And as you were running, they'd rebuild the stones, and it was just a pretty hectic game. But it just shows that there is massive love for cricket out there, that even if they can't afford to play that game, that they'll still find a way of doing it. So I think it's a good thing to talk about.
We should include that varsity, 7 stones.
Yeah, there you go, 7 stones, what a game. Look
Wow.
it up, it's good fun.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I just remembered I used to play French cricket when I was younger with my dad, where you hold the bat like that and then you have to do it like that.
Classic beach game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun that.
Yeah, you ever played a bit of French cricket, Sam?
That was a good game. That was a big part of my childhood, and I
Really?
can't believe I forgot about it until now. I'm going to go home and play some French cricket, to be honest.
You
Or
sound
7
really
stones.
sincere.
Pardon?
7 stones.
Oh, 7 stones. I mean, I only have 6.
I might whip out the 2005 Brian Lara game that I used to have on Xbox as well.
I used to have that game as well.
Oh,
I used to have one on the Wii where if you batted too aggressively, the Wii remote would just fly across the room because if you weren't wearing the strap, because rebel and break a window of some sort. But that's our little small look at
That
cricket.
shows what we know about cricket effectively.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
We know some things. We know more about rugby union, which we're now going to move on to. Now, of course, England took on South Africa on Saturday and came out 12-11 winners. Very slim victory. They didn't score any tries, England, though, yet they still won the game. Sam, I think it's fair to say they didn't deserve it, did they?
No, they did not deserve it at all. And apparently, I did watch a little bit of the game, but I'm not too clued up on rugby. So when I asked someone what they thought of the game afterwards, they said it was a disgrace, to be honest, because, yeah, England are just terrible. I believe we're playing New Zealand next, if
That'll
I'm
be
correct.
exciting.
And that'll be something to watch. If we couldn't score a try against South Africa.
I mean, we did the job, didn't we?
Yeah.
Won. There was a scare towards the end that our last point wouldn't have counted, and the referee brings this out. It's not a good sign, especially right at the end of the game when we're celebrating. But yeah, England did a job. That's what you want. Just as with the cricket today, they weren't amazing. They weren't good, really, but they did what they needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I know a little bit. I think more possibly about rugby than you two, but essentially, watching most of the game.
What, Dave? Whoa!
No, it wasn't meant to be a brag. I'm sorry, but as head of sport, you've got to be.
You've got to be on the ball, mate.
Yeah, you've got to be aware of all the sports from netball to rugby.
Tell us about netball, Dave.
Yeah, I will in a minute. So England obviously didn't have much of the possession during the game. And they were quite lucky to come away with the win, obviously not scoring any tries, but it was obviously the point right at the end that was really key. And I think the most interesting thing is the implementation of the video assistant in rugby compared to football, to bring it back to something like football or even tennis or cricket. Rugby, tennis and cricket all have video assistant pinned down pretty well, whether it be Hawkeye or Hotspot. They have a good implementation of like the strike system. So if you appeal it and you're correct, you keep the strike. And that could possibly be a way in football, because we saw during the World Cup, everything would get checked.
Yeah.
And that slows down the game.
I mean, that was expected because we haven't used it before. I think you can't be too harsh on the referees because they didn't really know what they were doing with that, as no one really knew what was happening with that when the referee did this. Like, what does that mean? I don't know. But I think it will come into its own. I think it's coming to the Premier League soon, next year. And yeah, I think it's a good addition to football, but it just needs to be honed in and taken hold of.
Okay, Alan, is there anything rugby-wise you wish to add?
No.
No? Okay, well, in that case, we'll move on to UFC. So this weekend saw UFC 2-3... It was 2-3-0, wasn't it? 2-3-0. So obviously we're moving on from the Khabib-McGregor fight to some slightly smaller fights, perhaps ones that are not well known. But I think the key thing with them was that they're going to make the stars. So Cormier versus Lewis was the really big fight, and I think that'll be where we see Cormier become sort of one of the next big stars in UFC. One of his post-match interviews in UFC 229 was really quite amusing. So they said to him, and I quote this verbatim, "Why did you take your shorts off?" And he said, "Because my balls were hot."
That's the culture of the UFC.
It is, isn't
Go
it?
for it. You see McGregor with his FU jacket and trousers and just like chucking out middle fingers everywhere. It's part of the culture. I think it's not for the not for the faint-hearted watching it anyway, is it? But for kids as well, it's probably not right. But yeah, it's funny. It's good. Good entertainment.
Yeah, so I've gotten into UFC the last couple of months. I hate to say it because of the KSI Logan Paul boxing match, but that's
disgrace.
That's a separate matter. If it gets you into a sport, then it's a good thing. So I've gotten into boxing and UFC and watching it back. The main thing with me with Cormier is obviously his personality. It's the same thing with McGregor, who also had a go at boxing as well. If you want to be a success in MMA or in boxing, you've got to have personality.
You've got to have that dirty talk.
So, for example, Khabib. Khabib was one of the bigger names in UFC, but he wasn't the star that he is now. So he charges out the UFC ring and has a bit of fisticuffs with some members of the audience / coaching staff of McGregor. And now there's talk of him fighting Mayweather in boxing.
Yeah, I did see that.
Which would be not a good idea because Khabib is known for his wrestling skills, not his boxing skills. And that was the only reason McGregor fought Mayweather, is because McGregor is known for his boxing skills because he grew up, he was a boxer and then converted to MMA. So I think it'd be a bit of a joke fight if Khabib took on Mayweather because it would be so obvious that Mayweather would win that match, considering that he's never lost a match before in his career. But it's just the money more than anything in the sport nowadays and the appeal of McGregor. How McGregor comes back from UFC 229, I don't know. Maybe Cormier's talks of him fighting Brock Lesnar, I believe it is.
Yes, I believe he said that in his post-match interview, his fight against Brock Lesnar, which I believe is now confirmed, I'm not sure, but I think it was confirmed. He said that it would be a much tougher fight than the one that he just had. I mean, have you seen the size of Brock Lesnar? He's huge.
Big personality too, isn't he? He's currently WWE champion. He's been given 2 dates that he's allowed to perform at UFC, and he's a big personality. There's a lot to him, and before I got into UFC, I didn't expect it to have like quite so many personalities. When you get into it, it's a lot. It's just as much as how you perform outside of the cage is what you do inside it.
Yeah, what was the other WWE wrestler that had a go at UFC and he was rubbish?
CM Punk.
CM Punk, that was it, yeah. And he wasn't very good. So do you think Brock Lesnar would be better?
Yeah, because Brock Lesnar started off in mixed martial arts, and whilst professional wrestling is a completely different thing, he's able to be diverse in both sports. And when he comes back to UFC, I think there was a bit of a doping scandal last year where he was banned from some event. When he comes back, I reckon it'll be quite a tight fight between the two.
Okay, you seem to be quite a WWE fan. Is there anything sort of going on news-wise over there?
I prefer sort of independent wrestling, but they've just had a show in Saudi Arabia which is very controversial because
with John Cena, wasn't it? Yeah.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So a lot of the wrestlers called out John Cena, Daniel Bryan, but they went ahead. Obviously in Saudi Arabia, no women could perform. The likes of DX, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Kane, they're all virgin, got on 60 now. They all came back for a match because they've got a lot of money to do it from all the sheikhs in Saudi Arabia, but it got a lot of backlash. The show wasn't great, and I think WWE are more in for the money than anything else now.
Yeah.
And there was also that news, it was probably a week ago now, but it might not be full news, but the news of Roman Reigns with him getting his leukemia back.
Yeah, he got leukemia.
Yeah, he had it when he was a young boy. I think he used to play NFL.
Yeah.
And he had it at that time.
So
and
Brock Lesnar as well.
But yeah, he's had to retire from his. I think he's got the Universal Heavyweight title. So yeah, that's pretty sad news for the wrestling community as well.
Okay, well I hope he undergoes treatment and makes a recovery back to full health. But is there any other sporting news anyone wishes to contribute before we end the show?
Hamilton.
Yes, Formula One.
Formula One.
Is he better than Schumacher?
Big talk, isn't it? I think he is. I think no one. I mean, Schumacher dominated for years. If you see his records, it's just sort of that decade from 2000 to 2010 was just complete Schumacher heaven. I think now is the same for Lewis Hamilton over the last few years. So Schumacher now has 7 world titles and Hamilton has 5. But Hamilton's still got a lot left in him, so I think you could argue he's definitely up there with Schumacher, even though Schumacher is the best. But yeah, I think that he can definitely challenge for at least 2 more world titles.
Okay.
He's definitely got it in him.
Yeah.
Do you think there's not got enough competition? Because obviously Raikkonen's
Yeah.
falling away a little bit in Formula One now.
I mean, there are occasional races where they prevent him from winning his world titles, like Raikkonen and Ricciardo have done that. But I think you just can't stop him. I remember last year at Barcelona testing, everyone was doing laps and laps and laps trying to get that fastest time. Hamilton comes in, does one, beats them all by a second and a half, and goes home. And that's just what he's about. Last year, I think there was talk of him retiring because he's just
bored.
He's just too
too
high
good.
up there. However, I do think Vettel is getting better. He's challenging again. There was a few years where Vettel was the star man before Hamilton sort of came up again.
Stole the limelight.
Yeah, but I think that he's got people coming up. People coming for him. But at Mercedes, he's got a good platform.
What do you think about that young lad Max Verstappen? Because he was meant to be the next big thing in Formula One. Has he actually come through at all? I mean, I'm not a big Formula One fan myself,
I just think Hamilton just steals the limelight. I think you see it with players. Again, we'll go back to football. Like Mbappe coming up, there's talk of him. He's doing amazing things. He's won a World Cup, of course. Maybe stealing Neymar's limelight a bit, but I think talk is still about Messi and Ronaldo. I think when you're as good as Hamilton is, I think he's at that level where you could call him like one of the all-time greats, if not the great, maybe in line with Schumacher. But I think when there's someone like that still racing, I think that's the focus of your talk, isn't it?
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, I'll bring you news that Liverpool are currently losing 1-0 to Red Star Belgrade.
Well, hey!
So it'll be interesting to see if they turn that around. You already know the results, of course, by the time this goes out. Thank you to the three of you for joining me today. I hope you at home or wherever you are have enjoyed watching this. And Luke Baldwin will be returning to the hot seat again in another episode very soon.